When I was here in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, there was about 2,000 people here. So there was a tremendous amount of energy. There were people interested in all sorts of things. And if your thing was sports, you were able to find like-minded people who were into sports. If your thing, like me, was music and arts, you were able to find people who were into music and arts. And there was just a real synergy and a real investment that the teachers were making into students' lives during that time. I think Central helped prepare me for the real world in that I had some incredible educators investing in my life. When I look back at my time at Central, I think of folks like Kelly Fay, Graham Hilliam, Lisa Perry, Beth Foster, Joanne Gilowitz, Janet Wilson, Ron Andrews, people from a wide variety of disciplines who took time to be invested in who I was, and not just in their thing, but that were really concerned with the totality of who I was as a person. And again, as an educator myself, now realizing the time it takes to invest in students, these people really poured out their hearts and lives, and I'm so thankful for the sacrifices that they made of their own personal time to be away from their families, to be away from doing things that they would prefer to do, to run extracurricular things like band trips, like drama festivals, like sport games, things that would take them away from being with their family just so that they could invest in our lives and give us an upbringing that was more wholesome. And that continues to mean a lot to me. Favorite weird fact, and this was a way that we would kind of, torment the grade 9s, is that, if you're new to the building, you didn't know that there wasn't an elevator, you might fall prey to us seniors selling you an elevator pass. So there is no elevators at Central. Never has been, to my knowledge, and there never was. In the drama department, I was in 2 musicals while I was here. I was in one called Hair, and I was in one called Peter Pan. The thing I remember about Hair is it was really, Beth Foster was the head of the department, and it was really Beth Foster's desire to do this musical. She had seen it as a child over in England, and she wanted to do it here. Now, if you know anything about Hair, the content is questionable. So I have great memories of us being in a portable with the scripts open, and I was part of the main cast. And Beth would be with us with pencil in hand, and she'd say, "Okay, there's a reference to LSD. We got to cut that. There's a reference to some inappropriate sexual things. We're going to cut that as well. And oh, that song talks about sodomy. We definitely have to cut that." And I think she had an arrangement with the principal at the time, Mary Ellen Smith, that we could do the play as long as we kind of Disneyified some of the content. So that was a great experience as well, pulling off that play, of which the music was amazing, and the script was, after we had kind of butchered it a little bit or taken it, it was passable, but it certainly wasn't what it was on Broadway in the 60s.
I played the flute, and my favorite concert was when we went to Germany and did the twinning of the cities between Barrie and Zweibrücken.
I was in Mr. Smith, was probably the most influential teacher I had, and I had him every year. From grade 9 right through, I took some type of woodworking class to get in one of his classes. The neat part about Central was everyone came from, like, you had farm kids, you had city kids, you had kids just moved from Toronto, so there was a good mix. The teachers used to put on is it a Christmas?
It was a Christmas one.
They put on a performance and they'd all sing, they'd play instruments.
They were hilarious.
And it was just, you seen a different side of the teacher other than, at the class, do this, do that. So that was
Some of them
really
wore
neat.
tutus and like leotards and danced across the stage. It was before Christmas.
Yeah.
The bomb squad had to come. There was no bomb, but the bomb squad had to come. And all the ladies in the office and guidance were very happy to see the bomb squad guys. And we do laugh about that still.
It's right downtown, and unfortunately when this closes, like all these surrounding businesses that rely on these kids to eat lunch and breakfast and snacks after school, like some of these places aren't going to survive.
I've been involved with the football program here for 4 of the 5 years that I've been here. I think my all-time favorite one happened this past year, actually. We beat Barrie North in a game by 5 points, and we had 18 guys at the end of the game, and they had 40, and that was, I remember one of our coaches said that was the best team win that he's ever seen, and it was just a great game, a great show of perseverance and guts by all the players, and that would probably be one of my all-time favorites. It's a school, yeah, but it's got a lot of history in it, and I think if that's the one life lesson, I think that would be it, is to, maintain your history and be proud of your history.
When the school closed here in 1949, I was one of the first students. We had to go to Barrie then. at Menacing.
So everything was devoted to the war. And as a matter of fact, we didn't start school till almost Thanksgiving, and we were to be finished by shortly after Easter. And I don't know so much about the girls, but the boys were expected to work at different jobs. Most of them were in connection with the war.
My mother died when I was 13, and Dad died 2 years later. So my brother and I were left. He farmed and I went to school.
All the boys that were in grade 13 would have graduated because they were wanting air crew. And a high school education was, they wanted you to finish high school education and join the Air Force.
One of the things that we used to do, we had an event every year where we would go to the arena. And I remember doing the Highland Fling in the Barrie Arena with the rest of the students.
This was before school buses. I boarded in Barrie with another chap from Menacing. It was quite a shock to us to go from a small continuation school in Menacing where the class was about 6 people.
A lot of the times I would sleep in, and my brother used to have to drive me to catch the school bus down the highway.
My 2 brothers had gone to BCI, and they had both played rugby at that time, and I had looked forward to maybe following in their footsteps. But as I said before, there were no inter-school activities. It was all war effort. As a matter of fact, there was a shooting gallery in the basement of BCI. I don't know whether people realize this or not. And we used Lee Enfield rifles with a .22 bore. The war was #1, and everything was to contribute to the war. The shooting gallery was to get anybody that joined the Army was to get them familiar with their rifle. It was talked every day. Every day you read the paper. Every day it was what was happening. Almost your education was secondary. And my brother that was a doctor, he came up, and the 3 of us went in. And I can remember they read the names of the boys that were killed from Central Collegiate. They read them all off. And there were none of my age. Nobody had been killed. They were still in the process of training. And he pretty well knew them all. It was amazing.
Whoa, that Baton Rouge.
Well, I was a part of the music program here, and we went on 2 trips overseas. We went to Italy and then Austria, Germany on the next trip. I was also a part of the sports programs. I played volleyball, I played junior basketball, I was on the ski team, and I was a member of the rugby team as well.
Music was a pretty big part of my life even before high school. And then coming here and getting that kind of different side of it, playing with, 25 other people instead of just a couple buddies in your garage, it makes it sound a lot greater, a lot bigger, and makes it definitely feel a little more special to play with that many people. Probably the most fun we had was going on those band trips overseas. I mean, we're from Barrie. It's not the biggest town in the world, so to go over to Europe, go to Italy and Austria and Germany and see the world, that was a pretty cool aspect. And to do it with one of your close friends and get to play music while you're there, that's probably one of the bigger highlights for me, I'd say.
Have strings here at Central, so I took up the trombone and had to learn how to read bass clef, and that was lots of fun. And I played in the band, in the junior band, and then the senior band, as well as the jazz band.
I actually met my fiance here, Chloe Foster. We started dating when I was in grade 12. She was in grade 11. In January 2008, it was actually New Year's Day, we went on our first date. And so since then, We're engaged now, got engaged last summer. Been dating for 8 years, and it's been pretty awesome.
But please don't bury me down in that cocoa ground. Well, I'd rather have them cut me up, pass me all around. My rain in a hurricane, and the blind can have my eyes, and the deaf can take both of my ears if they don't mind the size.
I think one of the great things about Central is everyone's involved, and it's such a great community that the people that were involved in the music program and the sports programs, it was a good community, and I think a lot of great students were made because of that.
I was also involved in 2 musicals. I was in Grease and I was in Fiddler on the Roof. So as if I didn't have any spare time of my own, I wanted to involve more things. And then on top of that, I was in junior band, I was in senior band, jazz band, I was on the band executive as well. So for me, I put a lot into the school, and I really wouldn't have traded it for pretty much anything. It was very rewarding.
I started playing fiddle when I was 5 years old, and grew up competing in fiddle competitions, and so music was always a part of my life. And coming here to Barrie Central, I knew that the music program was going to be a big part of my time here at Central.
I spent last night in the arms of a girl in Louisiana. Though I'm out on the highway, my thoughts are still with her. Such a strange combination of a woman and a child. Such a strange situation, stopping every 100 miles, calling Baton Rouge.
We were probably first on the stage with the band.
Oh, that's true.
But first time we played together, I guess,
us,
probably a public performance was part of Central Idol, and I think we were like the halftime show or something like that.
The guest artist.
And probably our first performance with fiddle and guitar. And
that's true, yeah.
Aside from the band performances, I played trombone in the band. And
I played euphonium. It was like a little tuba. I remember in the change rooms for rugby practice, or when our hair was getting too long, we'd cut each other's hair with the clippers in the bathroom.
I was never a part of that. I guess I already had short hair, but
that's true.
I do remember that. That was a funny moment for sure.
Yeah, lots of haircutting. We used to put little steps in our head too, so we could just look that a little bit cooler. That was the one extra thing to do.
It makes you faster too.
Oh, exactly. Very aerodynamic. Like, our teachers were amazing. They put so much time into that band program, and maybe at the time I didn't realize it. But now that I'm older and you look at how much time you have to put into your own craft, I can only imagine how much work and frustration went into trying to coordinate 25 to 30 teenagers into playing something perfectly right for like a half an hour. It's a lot more work than you'd think at the time.
And the deaf can take both of my ears if they don't mind the size. Said the deaf can take both of my ears if they don't mind the size.
This locker is significant because this is where I met my wife. And we went on one date in high school, and then 17 years later met up again and ended up getting married. And now we're right back at our locker. Both my parents taught here, so I had been coming to Central since I was 4 years old, wandering in the halls, playing in the summers, being here at Christmas parties, and so this was always sort of my second home. It was where I knew I was going to go, even though I wasn't in the catchment area of Central. I was supposed to go to Innisdale. I knew that this is where I was going to be because this was high school.
I started off playing the flute, was quite terrible at it, and tried one day after music class someone's French horn, and I loved it.
I was able to go on 3 trips. The very first one, I think, is the one that would stick out most to me, which is I went on the California trip, which was the first time that I was going anywhere for any length of time without my family. And that was the first time I was flying by myself without my family, and to be in California. And we were in Los Angeles competing, and we went to San Francisco, and we competed in other places around the United States after that, but that would be the one that sticks out most to me.
I did go on the history field trip to Boston, and it was chaperoned again by Michael's dad, Mr. Johns, and that was a really fun time.
In my very first class in grade 9, I met some of my closest friends that I still have today, and they're some of the smartest people I know. And we can have fun, and you can be silly, and you can achieve, and you can push one another. Being in the band for me made me go out and step on stage by myself and do competitions and force me to expand sort of who I was. And I think the ability as a university professor now to stand in front of a class and talk, a lot of it comes from being able to stand and play an instrument and be adjudicated in a competition and those sorts of things.
I think it was especially in your mom's class, Mrs. Johns's Social Society Challenge and Change class, that I think really gave me the confidence and the appreciation of just how special Central was in terms of fostering an academic atmosphere, and that it's okay to be it's okay to read, it's okay to dance, it's okay to have fun and just be a big nerd.
When we were here in particular, because it had such a wide catchment area, you would have friends who lived out in Ivy and lived on farms, and you had people who were living in downtown Barrie who had a very different life experience than me living in the south part of Barrie, and you're all brought together into this environment. And that was something that I think I will always appreciate about Central, that it taught me that it was okay to be me, and it taught me that it was okay for everyone else to be like them too, because they had something to offer, and that they probably were going to be my friend if I put the effort out, and they did the same.
The warmth and generosity of being encouraged to be who you are and to grow those skills and talents, I think is something that should always be remembered about a place. It's easy for institutions to be institutional, for it to just be a processor of young minds and in that age, but I truly do feel that there's a spirit to this place that is warm and encouraging and generous, and I'm very thankful for having that as part of my life.
I ran for student council president, and I lost to our current mayor, who beat me with his spectacular slogan, "Vote for me, I've got good hair."
Worked for me.
And someone didn't vote for me. But so as one of the non-successful candidates in student council president vote, you would allowed to sit on the council as an ad hoc member. So I was sort of part of the group of rejects that could be still part of student council even though we didn't win.
This was my locker in grade 10, and the deal was right before class started, if you knew somebody else's combination and they weren't around, you could go into their locker, take there's a shelf in here about this high, you'd take a textbook, something slippery, and prop it up so it was on an angle, and then take their pencil case or a whole bunch of loose stuff from the locker, pile it on top, loose pieces of paper, everything, and then get the door closed so that when they came and opened it, all that stuff would fall out on this floor. And I had a friend, and my best friend, we used to do this to each other, so that right before class, you know, we'd open our locker and then right here. I remember while kids were going to class around me, picking up all my stuff off the floor, cursing his name. But it turned out okay, because he's now a professor of biochemistry at York University, and I'm not as smart as him, so I became mayor. Barrie Central, as an institution, I kind of feel like Barrie Central is a bit like the Queen's University or U of T or McGill of high schools. Because it has such a storied history, and it has very established sort of standards and character. I mean, when you come to a school that has that kind of history, you want to do right by it. And you know, this is the school that all of Barrie's war dead attended. This was the school for all of the young people in our community until the 60s. So the history here is just so long and deep, and you look at the Hall of Fame and see how many prominent people and people that went on to amazing things came through these doors. I think that had an impact on me. I think it made me want to be part of that and represent it well. And the other thing about Central in the time that I was here, you know, in addition to a tremendous athletics program, well known for football and for rugby, the music program, world renowned for music, it also had, lesser known but a big deal to me, was a classics program. That's Latin, and you know, sort of Roman history and mythology and all those sorts of things. And I was a total geek, and I was right into that. And I actually think that was a big part of my life too, because I found a lot of friends through that. But it was also education, as a classical education, and that actually served me well later in life. History office, English office, I remember returning textbooks here that I'd probably written in a little bit, and they were okay with that. One of my best friends, his dad actually was on faculty here, Kim Johns. He was head of history forever. Longtime Central guy, big football fan. This is a great football school. I'm sure everybody knows Central for football, but his dad was also the head of the history department, and taught me a lot of basic beginning Canadian history, but also he was so knowledgeable about the American Civil War. That was just a specialty. I learned a lot about that. This room, I actually had phys ed, like health education in here, so I'm not going to talk about the things I learned in the classroom there. Clearly, I didn't follow the healthy living guidelines. But this was, like these hallways, when I was at Central in the 80s and the 90s, Central had 1,700 students. Kids were bussed in from Utopia and Ivy and Stroud and all over the place, because Barrie only had the 4 high schools, public high schools. And the hallways were just jammed. I mean, there's a lot less students today, but in the day, we were often 2 to a locker. Kids would hang out in the hallways between classes, and this place was just teeming. And then outside as well, you could really feel the presence of the school, you know, in the downtown whenever school was in, especially on lunch break, where I wasted a lot of time and a lot of quarters at arcades. Actually, that maybe is where I got my thing for transit, because I spent a lot of time at the bus station playing video games after high school. The history of Barrie Central Collegiate is the history of the city of Barrie. They are one and the same. You can track every major event in the history of this community in terms of its impact on the school. You can see the growth of the city in the way that this institution evolved. You can see the commitment of people to the city in Fisher Auditorium, the effort that was made in the community to support that, in all the initiatives that were done here over the years, charitable initiatives, community outreach initiatives. Library, more computers than when I was here, but not a lot more, I have to tell you. I mean, even in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, Central was pretty good on technology. They did have a whole number of computer stations here. I remember doing some simulations and games that were partly on the computer, partly with resources and lots of other kids. You also, upstairs here, you could go upstairs and study. So, study with your friends. You know, I did actually do some of that because we did have exams here. Now, the years I was here was OAC, so grade 13 was gone, but it hadn't shrunk to grade 12 yet. There was still a 5th year, your OAC year, Ontario Academic Credit, and if you had enough by the end of grade 12, you could graduate then, but most people still took 5 years. So I was here through those 5 years, and those exams were really important because that's how you got into college or university, and this is kind of where I studied. The stacks are a lot smaller than they used to be, not because I'm bigger, but because, you know, there's less print material, I'm guessing now, than there was. But I can remember classes here, I can remember projects just like this. There's still all this student artwork around the walls, all this sort of history. I mean, like all good libraries, this is a place where a community can actually show itself off, and it can be a real gathering point in a community. And I think, you know, the cafeteria and the library, the 2 spots where lots of Centralites got together over the years, and even managed to get into some trouble in here too. I was the president of student council here in 1993, which was the sesquicentennial year for Barrie Central. We ran a charitable fundraiser for Youth Haven, which was with Much Music Video Dance Party, and packed the gym down here, made some money for the charity. It's the first charitable event I ever organized. But the other big issue in that year was condom machines, whether there would be condom machines in the washrooms. And that was something I actually advocated for because it was a much smaller town then, and we thought kids might be embarrassed going to the drugstore to buy them. So having them in the washrooms would make it easier for them to get them, and it was the time of AIDS, and there was a lot more concern back then about that. And they were actually put in the year after I left. So I was successful, but only after I left. First of all, it should be remembered for punching way above its weight in sports, especially in music, and also in academics, in both the specialty academics like the Latin and classics programs and other areas. But you know, I think for producing really well-rounded graduates and for giving kids a chance to pursue their dreams, whether that was in music or on the stage in the theatrical productions or in sports, the whole range of sports was available here over the years, or in academics. I think the other thing Central should be remembered for is that this was and is a very, very accepting place. And accepting is by which I mean diversity and acceptance of kids from different backgrounds and kids who are different people. You know, Central is the downtown school. And one of the things that was really interesting about it for me when I was here was that you had the richest kids in town and you had the poorest kids in town that came here. Because this wasn't a suburban school, it was a very urban school, and you had kids from very, very wealthy neighborhoods and areas of the city, and you had kids from very poor backgrounds. In fact, some who were living on their own but still going to school or you know, trying to make their way out of a difficult home and those sorts of things. And yet that worked together. I mean, the kids learned to respect one another regardless of their backgrounds. And there's a core lesson that's essentially Canadian, and I hope that that is part of what people remember about the spirit of Barrie Central. I think people will remember its role in history. I hope they will. I think they will remember that there was a school that everybody went to for 100 years, everybody in town went to for 100 years, that produced these incredible graduates that went on to great things and educated, you know, multiple generations of Barrie residents. But then in the years when it wasn't the only school, after the 60s, and it became one of several, that it remained a very special and unique place. And I think it will always have that place in the history of the city.
We're talking about the oldest institution in Simcoe County. So the interesting thing about the closure of Barrie Central Collegiate is that it has the potential to affect more people than any other institution that's ever been closed, ever, in Simcoe County. We're talking about nearly 170 years of graduates. So this institution, what this institution represents, has educated the masses, and they have gone in and they have literally changed the face of Canada.
Always think of others first. Don't do the easy thing. Do the hard thing, because the hard thing is probably the right thing to do. And that's kind of life values we picked up from teachers and coaches and just people you were involved with here. It was always look out for somebody else. Don't look out for yourself before other people.
There's very few things left in Barrie that started here when it was small and are still here when it's big, and this was one of them. And why people are upset about it and why people fought so hard to keep it, partly it's their own memories, because no one wants to see their high school disappear. But I think people intrinsically know, having been here, what it means to have gone to the same school as War Dead, the same school as where the Wall of Honor was. There's that history, and that can't, once it's gone, it's gone. It cannot be replaced.
You know, there's been so many prominent Barrie residents, there's been so many families, multi-generations of Centralites, and to have that sort of passing into the history books is very sad.